The cabin creaked against the Montana cold as Marcus Ironwood opened his eyes at 4 in the morning, dragged from sleep by dreams that refused to grant him peace. 52 years of life had taught him many things, but not how to silence the voices of the dead. They came to him in the darkness before dawn, patient as creditors collecting debts that could never be fully paid. Faces he had seen in their final moments. Names he carried like stones in his pockets. The accumulated weight of 3 decades as the Northern Montana Pac's instrument of necessary violence. He swung his legs over the edge of the bed and sat there, letting the cold floorboard bite into his bare feet. The discomfort felt appropriate, earned. Through the frost-edged window, the Absaroka Range was beginning to emerge from darkness, peaks catching the first suggestion of light, while the valleys remained shrouded in shadow. He had chosen this place for its isolation, for the way it demanded nothing from him except continued breathing. 2 years since he had walked away from his duties as enforcer. 2 years of solitude and whiskey and slow erosion of purpose. The kitchen was cold when he entered the wood stove, having burned down to embers overnight. He knelt and coaxed flame from the coals with the patience of long practice, then set water to boil for coffee that would taste like nothing, because everything tasted like nothing these days. Doc Chen called it PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, as if clinical terminology could somehow make the nightmares more manageable. Marcus called it the price of admission. You didn't spend 35 years ending lives and walk away with your soul intact. He was pouring his first cup when he heard the engine. The sound was wrong for this place this hour. His nearest neighbor lived 12 miles distant, and nobody came to Marcus Ironwood's cabin without invitation. His hand moved automatically toward his hip, reaching for a weapon that wasn't there because he had stopped wearing one 3 months ago, trying to convince himself that the wars were over. The pickup truck emerged from the tree line, headlights cutting through pre-dawn gray. Old and battered, climbing the rutted track with the determination of a vehicle that had seen worse terrain. Marcus squinted against the glare and felt something shift in his chest when recognition came. Cole Blackwood. 30 years of shared history connected them, forged in blood and violence, and the kind of trust that came only from saving each other's lives more times than either could count. If Cole was driving 3 hours to reach him at this hour, the world Marcus had tried to leave behind was reaching out to drag him back. The truck ground to a halt. The door opened with protesting hinges, and Cole emerged into the gray morning, looking every one of his 48 years. His hair had gone salt and pepper since their last meeting, and new lines had carved themselves around eyes that had witnessed too much death. But his gaze remained sharp, still carrying the edge that had earned him the nickname Reaper in years before either of them understood that such names were not compliments. Cole climbed the porch steps and stood beside Marcus, both of them looking out at the mountains as if the news could wait until the view had been properly appreciated. Finally, Cole broke the silence. Jack had a stroke last night. The words landed like a physical blow. Colonel Jack Morrison, mentor, teacher, the closest thing to a father Marcus had known since his own died when he was 14. 68 years old and still sharp as a combat blade, still the voice in Marcus's head that told him when he was about to cross a line that couldn't be uncrossed. His throat tightened. How bad? Stable, they say, but he's asking for you, says there's something important you need to know. Cole's voice dropped. Something about Thomas Harper. The name struck Marcus like a bullet from ambush. Thomas Harper, Ghost they had called him, the greatest warrior of his generation. The man Marcus had sworn to protect on a mission 15 years ago. The man Marcus had failed. Thomas is dead. The words came out flat. Has been for 15 years. I know. Cole met his gaze. But Jack says there's more. Things that were kept from you. He mentioned the girl. What girl? Lily Harper, Thomas's daughter. Another wave of memory threatened to drag Marcus under. A 13-year-old child blood on her face, vanishing into chaos. 6 months of searching that led nowhere. The official pronouncement, Lily Harper presumed dead. She's dead. His voice was harder now. They found blood at the scene, too much for a child to survive. They found blood. Cole's tone was careful. They never found a body. The implication hung between them. Marcus felt the foundations of 15 years beginning to shift, structures of grief and guilt that had become load-bearing walls threatening to collapse. Jack has answers. Cole put a hand on his shoulder. He says you need to hear them from him before it's too late. The drive to the pack settlement took 3 hours through terrain that fought them every mile. Marcus sat in silence watching wilderness scroll past speculation pointless until he heard what Jack had to tell him. They descended into the valley where the northern Montana pack had made its home for over a century. The settlement was larger than it had been when Marcus was young, sprawling now across both sides of the river. But it retained the character of a frontier town that had never fully surrendered to modernity. People stopped to watch as Cole's truck passed through. Marcus felt their gazes, the curiosity and wariness that his presence still provoked even after 2 years of absence. He had been their enforcer for 3 decades, the one they summoned when diplomacy failed and blood was the only language the enemy would understand. The medical facility occupied a building that had once been a trading post. Cole parked in front but didn't move to exit, his hands remaining on the steering wheel. There's something else. His voice was rough. The stroke wasn't natural. Doc Chen thinks someone tried to poison Jack. Something that triggered it. Marcus processed this, an old man suddenly falling ill just as secrets were about to be revealed. The timing too convenient for coincidence. Hupanto, we don't know, but they're operating inside pack territory, inside our security. Someone was making a move. Someone willing to kill to keep whatever Jack knew buried. They entered the medical facility together, nodding to staff who stepped aside. The interior smelled of antiseptic and worry. A young woman directed them to a private room at the end of the corridor. Jack Morrison lay in a hospital bed connected to monitors that beeped quiet testimony to his vital signs. He looked smaller than Marcus remembered, diminished in ways that went beyond physical weakness. But his eyes remained alert, the legendary eyes that had commanded battlefields and seen through every lie ever told in his presence. Took you long enough. His voice was weaker than it should have been, slurred slightly on one side. Marcus approached the bed. I'm here now. Sit down, I have a lot to tell you, and I don't know how much time I have left. Doc Chen says you're stable. I'm dying, Marcus. Maybe not today, but soon. The stroke was just the opening act. Marcus sat. Jack took a moment to gather himself. 15 years ago, I sent you on a mission to escort Thomas Harper and his family through contested territory. You know how it ended. What you don't know is why it failed. We were ambushed. Shadow Ridge knew our route. They knew more than your route. They knew exact timing, team composition, every checkpoint. That level of intelligence comes from inside our organization. A traitor. Yes, but not who you might think. Jack paused. Victor Crane. Ice ran through Marcus's veins. Victor Crane Alpha of Shadow Ridge, architect of atrocities, the man whose forces had killed Thomas Harper. But Jack was saying something different. His expression had shifted into something complicated. Crane wasn't the mastermind. He was a weapon, same as you, pointed and fired by someone else. Who? Senator William Drake. The name was familiar from newspapers and broadcasts. A human politician prominent in national security circles, rumored to be on the short list for vice president. A human senator is responsible for Thomas Harper's death. I'm telling you much more than that. Jack's voice took on a harder edge. 20 years ago, there was an event the packs called the Purge. 1,200 wolves slaughtered in a single coordinated attack. The official story was tragic intelligence failure. Marcus remembered the Purge. He had been young then, but the trauma had echoed through the entire wolf community. That wasn't bad luck. William Drake sold us out. He provided locations at timing everything the hunters needed to maximize casualties. In exchange, he received political support that launched his career. The implications expanded outward. A sitting senator, potentially future vice president, with the blood of over 1,000 wolves on his hands. Where's the proof? That's what Thomas was carrying. He spent 10 years compiling evidence. He was bringing it to me when Crane's forces attacked. But the intelligence was lost. No, Jack cut him off. Thomas made copies, hid them in locations only he knew. And he gave the key to those locations to the one person he trusted absolutely. Marcus felt pieces coming together. Lily. Thomas gave his daughter the key before the mission. He told her that if anything happened to him, she was to hide and wait until the time was right. But she's dead. We searched for months. She's not dead, Jack's voice cut through. I found her the night of the ambush, After you and your team were extracted, I went back. Thomas had mentioned a safe room, a bunker beneath his cabin. I found it, and I found Lily inside covered in her parents' blood, but alive. The room tilted. 15 years of grief, of guilt, of nightmares about a child he had failed to save, and all along she had been alive. You knew. His voice was barely recognizable. You knew all this time. I didn't tell anyone. Thomas asked me to protect her if anything happened. He was specific, no one could know. Drake had spies everywhere. If word got out that Lily survived, he would have moved heaven and earth to find and kill her. So you let me believe she was dead? Yes, and I would do it again. You weren't in a position to protect her. You were too visible, too connected to the mission. If you had known, your behavior would have changed, drawing attention that would have gotten her killed. Marcus wanted to rage against the deception, but the tactical part of his brain understood the logic. Where is she now? I set her up with a new identity, sent her to live with a family in Oregon. She grew up as close to human as a wolf can manage. Nursing school, 2 tours in Afghanistan as a Navy combat medic. Jack's expression softened. She's strong, Marcus. Stronger than any of us gave her credit for. But something's changed. 2 weeks ago, Crane's people found her. How, I don't know. What matters is that she's in danger, and the evidence Thomas died for is about to be lost forever. You said Crane was a weapon pointed by Drake. What does that mean? Victor Crane wasn't always what he is now. Jack's voice carried genuine sadness. I trained him same as I trained you. He was a good soldier, a good man. A good man who killed Thomas Harper. A destroyed man given a choice between doing Drake's bidding or watching his own family die. Jack's eyes were distant. Crane's wife and son were killed in the purge. He went to Drake afterward, seeking answers. Drake offered him a deal. Serve me or I'll make sure the world knows you were the one who betrayed your people. What? Drake had fabricated evidence. Documents, communications, testimony from paid witnesses. Enough to convince any court that Victor Crane had sold out his own kind. If Crane didn't cooperate, Drake would release it and Crane would be executed as a traitor. Marcus sat with this information. Victor Crane, the monster he had sworn to destroy, revealed as something more complicated. A victim as much as a villain. It didn't excuse what Crane had done, but it complicated the narrative of pure evil. Why tell me this now? Because you need to understand what you're walking into. To protect Lily, to finish what Thomas started, you're going to have to make choices that aren't black and white. You're going to have to see your enemies as people, even the ones who've done terrible things. And if I can't, then you'll fail again. And this time there won't be second chances. Jack gave him Lily's location, a motel in Boise, Idaho. She knew he might be coming. Whether she would trust him was something Marcus would have to earn. One more thing. Jack's voice stopped him at the door. Thomas Harper was my friend. My brother. He died believing that someday the truth would come out. I'm asking you to finish what he started. Not for me, for Thomas, for everyone who died in the purge. Marcus held his gaze. You have my word. Your word was always enough for me. Jack settled back against the pillows. Now go, before it's too late for both of us. The journey to Boise took 7 hours. Marcus and Cole drove in shifts, eating gas station sandwiches without tasting them. Cole worked the phone between the stints at the wheel, reaching out to contacts with carefully worded messages. Elena Cross confirmed she would meet them in 48 hours. Doc Samuel Chen was ready to travel. Others responded with varying degrees of enthusiasm. By the time they reached Idaho, Cole had assembled a list of possibles numbering close to 20. Marcus found the motel as the evening approached, a 2-story structure of weathered concrete. He walked the remaining distance alone, approaching the room number Jack had provided. He knocked. 3 times, then 2, the recognition pattern. The door opened a crack, held by a security chain. A pair of green eyes held nothing but calculation. Hands where I can see them. He raised his hand slowly. The door opened wider, revealing a woman with short brown hair and a Glock 19 held with easy competence. Marcus Ironwood. Not a question. Yes. You're supposed to be retired. Things change. She studied him through the crack. Jack Morrison sent you. He told me where to find you. He told me what you're carrying, and he told me the people who killed your father are very close to finding you. Something flickered in her eyes at the mention of Thomas Harper. Why should I trust you? You were there that night. You were supposed to protect us. The words struck home. Marcus forced himself to meet her gaze. You shouldn't trust me. I failed your father. I failed you. I've spent 15 years knowing that. But I'm also the only one who knows you're here. If I wanted to hurt you, I'd have brought an army. So you can shoot me, or you can let me in, or you can keep standing there until Crane's people figure out where you are. Lily Harper considered him for what felt like an eternity. Then she stepped back and opened the door. The room was cramped but organized. Maps covered every surface marked with notations in a precise hand. Documents pinned to walls connected by colored strings. A laptop displaying financial records. She had been conducting her own investigation. Lily closed the door and stood with her back against it, gun still in hand, but no longer aimed. You have 10 minutes. Jack told me about your father's evidence, about Drake and the purge. Jack told you a lot for a man at death's door. He's dying. He wanted someone else to know the truth. Marcus moved to examine one of the maps showing packed territories, Shadow Ridge marked in red. How long have you been working on this? Since I turned 21. My father left instructions, things I was supposed to do when I was old enough. Her voice was flat. He also left evidence. Copies of everything hidden in places only I knew. Why would I tell you that? Because you can't do this alone. Drake has resources you can't imagine. And the people hunting you won't stop until they find you or die trying. I've been running for 2 weeks. I can keep running. Running accomplishes nothing. It just delays the inevitable. He took a step toward her. Your father died trying to expose Drake. Jack protected you for 15 years, so you could finish what Thomas started. If you run now, all of that sacrifice means nothing. Don't lecture me about sacrifice. Heat beneath her controlled voice. I know what my father sacrificed. I watched him die through a crack in the bunker door. I heard my mother scream. The words hit like physical blows. She had witnessed their deaths, carried that memory for 15 years while living a lie. You're right. He forced the words out. I don't get to lecture you. I'm the one who failed. But I'm here now offering to help. Whatever you think of me, ask yourself, what would your father want you to do? Silenced by, my father would want me to finish the mission. He would want Drake exposed. He would want everyone who died in the purge to get justice. Then let me help you make that happen. She moved to her laptop, turning it toward him. A photograph, slightly blurred, showed 2 men shaking hands. One was obviously Drake, younger than his current image. The other was Victor Crane. This was taken 3 months after the purge. It proves Drake and Crane were in direct contact when Crane was publicly claiming no involvement with human politics. What were they discussing? The photograph came with notes. This was the meeting where Drake recruited Crane, where he showed Crane the fabricated evidence and gave him a choice: cooperate or be destroyed. Marcus absorbed this. Drake as puppet master, Crane as reluctant puppet, a conspiracy stretching 15 years. This is powerful evidence, but not enough to bring down a man like Drake. I know. Lily moved to another stack. That's why we need Crane. Crane, he's the enemy. He's a witness, the most important witness we could have. She handed him a folder. My father's notes include transcripts of conversations where Crane talks about being blackmailed. If we can convince Crane to testify, the whole house of cards comes down. Marcus stared at her. You want to turn Victor Crane into an ally. I want to give him a choice, the same choice Drake never gave him. Her green eyes met his. My father believed in justice, not just revenge. He wanted to break the cycle. It was stunning, completely different from what Marcus had expected. He had anticipated conversations about tactics and targets. Instead, Lily was proposing understanding rather than violence. And if Crane refuses, then we destroy him along with Drake. But sometimes people do terrible things because they can't see any other way. If you show them another way, they take it. Marcus thought about Jack's words about seeing enemies as people. What do you need from me? Lily turned back to her wall of evidence. I need protection while I figure out how to approach Crane. I need resources to verify evidence. And I need someone who knew my father. Someone who can tell me if I'm doing what he would have wanted or if I'm fooling myself. A vulnerability she hadn't shown before. Your father was the finest man I ever knew. He believed in doing what was right, even when it cost him everything. Marcus moved to stand beside her. If he could see what you've done, what you're trying to do, he would be proud beyond words. Lily was silent for a long moment. I barely remember his face sometimes. 15 years is a long time. You haven't forgotten. You're here carrying on his work. That's the truest form of memory. Something shifted in her expression. Not trust, not yet, but perhaps the beginning of it. We should move. I've been here too long. I have a vehicle outside, a friend who can be trusted. They gathered her materials with efficient speed. The extraction was smooth, and within an hour they were heading north toward Montana, toward allies who were already gathering. Cole drove while Marcus briefed him on everything. The evidence, the plan to turn Crane, the timeline they were working against. We need to find out who the traitor is, Marcus said, before Crane moves. If we can identify the leak, we can use it, Lily finished. Feed them false information, lead Crane's forces into a trap. The rendezvous point was a hunting cabin that had belonged to Jack Morrison's family for generations. By the time they arrived, other vehicles were already there. Elena Cross met them at the door. 45 years old, dark hair touched with gray, she still moved with lethal grace. An eye patch covered her left eye, souvenir from a mission gone sideways. Her right eye was sharp enough to compensate. She embraced Marcus. You look like hell. Felt worse. I doubt it. Elena studied Lily. Thomas Harper's daughter. You have his eyes. So people tell me. It's a compliment. Thomas was the best of us. Inside, a war council was in session. Doc Samuel Chen, 55 years old, with a weathered face, nodded from his seat by the fire, his hands steady as surgical instruments wrapped around a coffee cup. Samuel Hammer Reed was a mountain of a man, Alpha of Stone Creek Pack, who had fought alongside Marcus in half a dozen campaigns. Marcus introduced Lily, watching as the others assessed her. She met their scrutiny without flinching, answering questions about her father's evidence with the precision of a briefing officer. The evidence is comprehensive. Doc Chen spoke slowly. But Drake has survived worse. He has lawyers who can tie anything up for years. Which is why we're not taking this to court. Lily spread her materials on the table. We're taking it public. Multiple channels simultaneously. Make it so big, no lawyer can contain it. And Crane? Crane is the key witness. Without his testimony, Drake can claim fabrication. With it, the story becomes impossible to dismiss. You really think Crane will flip? Hammer's skepticism was evident. I think he's been a prisoner for 20 years, and prisoners dream of freedom. The debate continued through the night. By dawn, they had the outline of an operation: identify the traitor within northern Montana, turn Crane against Drake, and release evidence in a coordinated media assault. Marcus stepped outside as the sun rose, needing a moment alone. The mountain air was sharp, carrying the scent of pine and approaching winter. Cole's phone rang. Marcus watched his friend's expression shift as he listened, then saw something he rarely witnessed: grief breaking through Cole's professional mask. Cole ended the call and stood still for a long moment before speaking. Jack passed away an hour ago, in his sleep. They said he was smiling. Marcus felt something tear loose inside him. Jack, who had trained him and shaped him and believed in him even when he didn't deserve belief. Gone. He left a message for you. Cole handed him a folded piece of paper. Marcus read in Jack's precise script, Marcus, if you're reading this, the old warhorse has finally run his last race. Don't mourn too long. I've lived a full life, done things worth doing, loved people worth loving. What I need you to understand is this: the mission was never about Drake or Crane or even the evidence. The mission was always about what happens after. Building something that can last. You have that chance now. Don't waste it on revenge. Fight for something, not just against something. Take care of Lily. She's stronger than she knows, but she's also more fragile than she shows. She's going to need someone who understands what it means to carry the weight of the dead. And Marcus, you were always the son I never had. I'm proud of you. Go finish what Thomas started, then live a life worth living. Jack. Marcus read the letter twice, then folded it and placed it in his pocket. He believed in this mission. His voice was steady despite everything. He believed we could win. I won't let him down. Lily found him there, her own expression, reflecting the grief that now bound them all. "We finish this," Marcus said. "Whatever it takes, whatever it costs. We finish what they started." And then he turned to look at her. "Then we find out if any of us knows how to live in peacetime." Cole approached with a satellite phone expression grim. "We have a problem. Drake is moving up his timeline. He's coming to Montana, personally bringing everything he has. If we don't stop him here, we won't get another chance." Marcus took the phone, listening as intelligence reports painted a picture of an enemy committing all resources to a decisive strike. It was exactly what they needed. The senator exposed and vulnerable, far from political protection. "How long do we have?" 3 weeks, maybe less." Marcus looked at the fighters gathered around him. Tired, grieving, but in their eyes he saw something defeat could not extinguish. They were ready. "Then we'd better get to work." The rescue of Emily Ashford and her son required precision that left no margin for error. Elena and Lily moved through the compound's perimeter like shadows, their approach choreographed through hand signals and instinct. The facility where Crane held his hostages was a converted ranch house 3 miles from Shadow Ridge's main settlement, guarded by 6 men who rotated shifts every 4 hours. They had been watching for 72 hours before the approach began. Elena settled into position on a ridgeline 200 meters from the main building rifle scope, catching the last light of a dying sun. Below, guards moved through routines with the complacency of men who had never faced a real threat. Lily approached from the east wearing the uniform of a delivery service. Her cover story was solid, her manner conveying nothing more threatening than a woman doing a tedious job. The guards barely glanced at her credentials. Inside, she counted threats and exits with automatic precision. 2 men in the front room playing cards, 1 in the kitchen making coffee. The hallway leading to back rooms where Emily and Jake Ashford had been held for 3 years. Elena's voice came through the earpiece. 3 targets mobile, 2 stationary at back entrance, 1 unknown, possibly sleeping northeast room. Lily adjusted trajectory, moving toward the kitchen with casual purpose. The guard looked up, annoyance crossing features grown soft from easy duty. "Deliveries go to the front." Her smile was disarming. "Just need to use the facilities. Long drive from Billings." He gestured toward a door at the hall's end, already dismissing her. She walked past, counting steps, feeling the weight of the sedative injector in her palm. The guard never saw it coming. One moment reaching for coffee, the next slumping forward unconscious before his head touched wood. Lily caught his cup before it could spill, setting it aside as she moved toward the back rooms. Elena's updates continued, tracking guards who didn't know they were already defeated. The 2 in front fell to shots so quiet they barely disturbed the evening. The guards at back entrance went down to sedative delivery. 6 minutes from first contact to final target. No deaths, no alarms. Emily Ashford was in the 3rd room, her son pressed against her side. 3 years of captivity had carved deep lines into her face. Jake, 8 years old, had hollow eyes of a child who had learned too early that the world contained monsters. Lily kept her voice soft. "My name is Lily Harper. Your husband sent me. We're getting you out." The extraction took 12 minutes, complicated by Emily's weakness and Jake's terror. Elena provided overwatch as they moved to the waiting vehicle. They were 3 miles clear before anyone at the ranch realized what had happened. Derek Ashford wept when he saw his family. The hard mask he had worn for 3 years cracked and fell away, revealing the desperate father who had betrayed everything to keep his wife and son alive. "I'll tell you everything," he said when he could speak. "Every communication, every dead drop, every piece of intelligence I passed. Just keep them safe. Whatever happens to me, keep them safe." "That's already arranged." Marcus kept his tone neutral. "Your family will be relocated under new identities. But first, we need everything you know about Crane's operation." The debriefing lasted 6 hours. The picture that emerged was comprehensive. Crane's network extended far beyond Shadow Ridge territory. But the most valuable intelligence came near the end, Derek's voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "There's something else. Something I was never supposed to know." Marcus leaned forward. "Tell me." "Crane has a direct communication channel with Drake. No intermediaries, no records. I overheard one conversation. Drake was threatening Crane, telling him if he ever tried to break free, Drake would release fabricated evidence and make sure Crane died as a traitor. We knew about the blackmail." "You don't know all of it." Derek looked up. Drake didn't just threaten Crane. He threatened to desecrate his family's graves. Said he had people who could reach anyone anywhere, even the dead. The room went silent. Drake had found the one threat that could still wound a man who had already lost everything violation of the only sacred thing he had left. Crane visits their graves regularly. Alone, it's the only time he lets his guard down. Derek continued, "If you want to approach him, that's where you do it." The moral question hung over their planning sessions. Cole argued for elimination. Crane is too dangerous to trust. Better to remove the threat and find another way to get to Drake. Elena disagreed. Killing Crane doesn't solve anything. We lose our best witness and prove we're no better than the enemies we're fighting. Doc Chen remained silent until finally speaking. The question isn't whether Crane deserves to die. The question is what kind of people we want to be when this is over. Lily had been studying the evidence. My father spent 10 years building a case against Drake. He could have killed Crane at any time, but he didn't. Why not? Marcus asked. Because he understood that killing enemies is easy. Understanding them is hard, and sometimes understanding them is the only way to actually defeat them. She stood and walked to the window. Crane isn't the disease. He's a symptom. Drake created him, shaped him, used him as a weapon. If we kill Crane without addressing what created him, we're just treating symptoms while the disease spreads. So we try to turn him. Marcus spoke the words forming in his mind. We give him something Drake never did a real choice. And if he refuses, then we deal with that. But we have to try. The approach required careful planning. Marcus would go alone, approaching Crane at his most vulnerable, trusting that the man who had once been Jack Morrison's student might still be reachable. They spent 2 days mapping Crane's movements, identifying his pattern of visiting the family memorial every third night. On the designated night, Marcus infiltrated Shadow Ridge territory through routes memorized decades ago. The moon was a sliver, providing darkness that favored the infiltrator. He reached the memorial clearing 2 hours before Crane's expected arrival and settled into concealment. When Crane finally appeared, Marcus felt his perception shift. This was not the monster he had imagined for 15 years. This was a man broken so thoroughly that the breaking had become his identity. Marcus stepped from the shadows. "I'm not here to fight." "Then you're a fool." Crane didn't reach for his weapon. "You're in my territory alone. I could kill you before you took a step." "You could, but you won't." "Why not?" "Because you're tired. You've been tired for 20 years doing Drake's bidding because you don't see any other way. And now you're standing at your family's grave wondering if there's anything left of the man they loved." Silence. "Jack Morrison sent you. Jack Morrison told me the truth about you, about what Drake did, about the choice you were given." "There was no choice. There was only survival." "I know." Marcus took a step forward. "I've made similar bargains. Done things I'm not proud of. The difference is I did them for my own reasons. You did them because a human politician held a knife to your throat. You don't understand. I understand that your wife and son died in the purge, that Drake threatened to destroy you if you didn't cooperate, that you've spent 20 years doing his dirty work because you couldn't see any other way out." Crane's hand moved toward his weapon. "Don't say his name. Thomas Harper was a good man. He died trying to expose the monster who killed your family." Marcus didn't back down. "And his daughter is still alive, still carrying evidence that can bring Drake down. You can be part of that, or you can keep being Drake's weapon until he decides you're not useful anymore. He took everything from me." The words came out hoarse. "My wife, my son, my honor. He made me into this thing and then he used me to hurt people who never deserved it. Then stop letting him. Take back what he stole. How the evidence he has is fabricated. We can prove it. Thomas documented everything, including methods Drake used to create false evidence against you. If you come forward, if you testify, Drake's house of cards comes down." Crane stared at him. "Why would you trust me after everything I've done?" "I don't trust you. I trust the man you used to be, the one Jack Morrison trained. I trust that man is still in there somewhere, suffocating under 20 years of Drake's control." The silence returned heavier than before. Crane walked to the graves, kneeling before the stones. He was 7 years old. His voice was barely audible. He wanted to be a teacher when he grew up. Said he wanted to help kids learn to read. Drake took that from the world. Drake took from all of us. It's time to take something back. For a long moment, Crane remained kneeling, communing with ghosts only he could see. Then he rose and turned to face Marcus. What do you need from me? But Drake had not built his empire by being blind to threats. Within 48 hours of Crane's agreement, everything changed. The attack on Shadow Ridge came without warning. Precision strikes by assets that should not have known where to find their targets. Drone surveillance, satellite imagery, communications intercepts. Drake had prepared for this possibility, embedding backup systems that would alert him if Crane wavered. Those systems had activated. Marcus received word while en route to a planning session. Shadow Ridge is burning, Cole's voice was tight. At least 50 hostiles, military-grade equipment. They're not trying to capture anyone. They're executing. Crane, unknown, last report had him pinned down in the administration building with a handful of loyalists. Without Crane, their entire strategy collapsed. Rally everyone who can fight. We're going in. The battle for Shadow Ridge was unlike anything Marcus had experienced in decades. The enemy was professional, disciplined, equipped with technology restricted to military applications. They moved through the compound with efficiency, clearing buildings and eliminating resistance with ruthless precision. Cole led the primary assault, punching through the perimeter. Elena provided overwatch, her rifle speaking in sharp cracks. Doc Chen moved behind lines, treating wounded with calm efficiency. Marcus fought his way toward the administration building where Crane was trapped. The old skills returned without conscious thought, decades of training asserting themselves. He found Crane behind an overturned desk, bleeding from wounds in shoulder and thigh, a handful of loyal fighters forming a desperate perimeter. Ironwood. Crane's voice was weak but steady. You came. We had a deal. A deal. Something like a laugh escaped his bloody lips. I've made too many deals. Most ended badly. This one won't. Marcus positioned himself to cover the primary approach. Can you move if I have to? You have to. The extraction was a running battle, every meter of progress contested. Lily coordinated from a mobile position, directing their route based on real-time intelligence. They were almost clear when Doc Chen went down. The shot came from an angle that should have been covered a sniper who had found a position no one anticipated. It took Doc Chen in the chest, spinning him around before he collapsed. Marcus was at his side in seconds, applying pressure to a wound his combat experience told him was fatal. Doc looked up with eyes already beginning to cloud. Finish it. Don't let it be for nothing. Hold on, we'll get you out. Too late for that. A bloody smile crossed Doc's weathered features. Tell my son I was proud. Tell him his father died doing something that mattered. Marcus held him as the life faded, as the man who had saved his life countless times finally reached a wound that could not be healed. The battle continued around them, but for a long moment Marcus was aware of nothing but the weight of another friend slipping away. Cole pulled him back. Marcus, we have to move. Now. They carried Doc's body with them, refusing to leave him for enemies to desecrate. The final push to safety cost them 2 more fighters. By dawn, they had retreated to a secondary position. Their forces were battered but intact. Crane was alive, wounded but stable, his testimony preserved. But the price had been terrible. Doc Chen dead, 8 other fighters lost. The element of surprise completely destroyed. Marcus stood apart as the sun rose. His hands were still stained with Doc's blood. Lily found him there. He knew. Her voice was soft. Doc Chen. He knew when he volunteered that he might not come back. That doesn't make it easier. No, it doesn't. She was quiet. But it means something. His choice. His sacrifice. Marcus thought about Jack's letter. Building something worth passing on. About all the people who had given their lives for a cause that might never be fully realized. We finish this, whatever it takes. And then we find out if any of us knows how to live in peacetime. Cole approached with a satellite phone. Drake is moving up his timeline. He's coming to Montana personally, bringing everything he has. If we don't stop him here, we won't get another chance. Marcus felt cold satisfaction settle in his chest. How long do we have? 72 hours, maybe less. Marcus looked at the fighters around him, survivors of a night that had cost them so much. In their eyes, he saw something defeat could not extinguish. Then we'd better get to work. The 72 hours before Drake's arrival passed in a blur of preparation. Marcus established command in the hunting cabin satellite uplinks, maintaining communication with Allied forces across 3 states. Maps covered every surface marked with positions and terrain features. Cole coordinated tactical elements. Elena organized sniper teams. Hammer Reed integrated his Stone Creek contingent with the main force. Crane, recovering from wounds, provided invaluable intelligence about Drake's preferences and the contractors he favored. On the second day, an unexpected arrival changed the dynamics. Ryan Morrison drove through the night after receiving word of his grandfather's death. 25 years old, freshly commissioned from West Point, he carried himself with eager confidence of a young officer who had trained extensively but never faced combat. Marcus found him at Jack's grave, a simple marker overlooking the valley. The young man's shoulders were rigid with grief. "He talked about you," Ryan's voice was steady. "Said you were the finest soldier he ever trained. Your grandfather was generous with praise." "He wasn't generous. He was accurate." Ryan turned and Marcus saw Jack Morrison's eyes looking from a younger face. "He also said you'd try to keep me out of whatever was happening." The thought had occurred to me. "I'm asking you not to. My grandfather spent 40 years building something. I can't sit on the sidelines while it's destroyed." Marcus studied him, seeing beneath the uniform to the core that drove this young man. "You've never killed anyone. No. You've never watched a friend die in front of you. Never made decisions that cost lives." "No," Ryan didn't flinch. "But I'd rather learn those lessons here, fighting for something my grandfather believed in, than somewhere else fighting for reasons I don't understand." Marcus thought about Jack's letter, about his own journey, the years of violence, the wisdom that came too late. "Walk with me." They moved away from the grave, following a trail toward a ridge overlooking the valley. "When I was your age, I thought combat was about winning, being faster, stronger, more skilled, eliminating threats before they could harm people I was protecting. Isn't it?" "Partly, but that's the easy part." They reached the ridge. "The hard part is what happens after. The weight you carry when fighting stops and you have to live with what you've done." Ryan listened with intensity. "I carry faces of everyone I've ended. Some deserved it. Some were just following orders. Some were probably good people who ended up on the wrong side. How do you live with that?" "Some days I don't. Some days the weight is so heavy I can barely move." Marcus turned to face him. "But most days I remember why. Not for glory or medals. For people who would have died if I hadn't been there. For children who grew up because I eliminated threats. Protection. Protection. That's the only justification that holds up at 3 in the morning. Not honor, not glory, just protecting those who can't protect themselves." Ryan absorbed this. "My grandfather said the purpose of strength was to protect the weak, not dominate them." He was right, and he spent his whole life living that principle. Marcus put a hand on Ryan's shoulder. "If you fight beside us, you may have to kill. You may watch people die. You may make decisions that haunt you forever. Are you prepared for that?" "I don't know, but I know I'm not prepared to do nothing." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then I'll teach you what I can. Not how to kill, how to carry the weight afterward without letting it crush you." The night before Drake's arrival, Marcus gathered his core team. Lily presented the media strategy. Evidence would release simultaneously across platforms the moment Drake's defeat was confirmed. Crane outlined Drake's tactical preferences. The senator relied on overwhelming force, preferring to crush opposition rather than adapt. Predictability was a fatal flaw. Cole detailed defensive positions, showing how terrain would channel Drake's forces into kill zones. When the briefing concluded, Marcus addressed the fighters. "Tomorrow we face an enemy who has spent 20 years believing himself untouchable. A man who has killed thousands, destroyed families, corrupted institutions, and never faced consequence. Tomorrow that changes." He looked around the room. "Some of us won't survive. That's combat's reality. But those who fall will fall knowing their sacrifice mattered. That they stood against darkness when standing was the hardest thing to do." Silence. Not absence of sound, but presence of resolve. "Get some rest. We move at dawn." The battle began as the sun crested the eastern peaks. Drake's forces entered through 3 approaches. Movements coordinated through satellite communication and intelligence that should have given decisive advantage. But that intelligence was compromised. Derek Ashford's final act of redemption had been feeding misinformation to his former handlers, guiding Drake's forces into prepared ambush. Elena's sniper teams initiated contact precision shots, eliminating commanders and communications specialists. The mercenaries trained for overwhelming force rather than guerrilla warfare struggled to adapt. Cole led the primary defensive force with controlled aggression that inflicted casualties while giving ground. Each meter of retreat cost Drake's forces more than they could afford. Marcus commanded from a mobile position, reading the flow and directing responses. Beside him, Ryan Morrison experienced his first combat. The young man's first kill came 2 hours into the engagement. A mercenary who had flanked their position raising his weapon when Ryan's shot took him in the chest. Marcus watched the transformation cross Ryan's face, the shock of having taken a life. Don't think about it now. There will be time later. Focus on the mission. Ryan nodded, face pale but hands steady as he returned to the fight. By midday, Drake's assault had stalled. His forces had taken severe casualties, commanders dead or incapacitated, communication disrupted by electronic warfare Lily had orchestrated. Drake himself arrived by helicopter as his offensive collapsed, fury visible even at a distance. He's coming to us. Cole's voice crackled through radio. Want us to intercept? No, let him come. This ends today. The meeting point was a clearing Drake had chosen for receiving surrender he was still convinced he could force. Marcus approached alone, unarmed, presenting himself as negotiator rather than combatant. Drake was smaller than photographs suggested, expensive tactical gear, incongruous on a body that had never known hardship. But his eyes were sharp with intelligence that had built an empire. Ironwood, Jack Morrison's attack dog, I expected you'd be here. You expected a lot of things today. Most didn't work out. Drake's jaw tightened. A temporary setback. Reinforcements are en route. Within hours, this territory will be burning. No, it won't. Marcus spoke with absolute certainty. Right now, Victor Crane is giving recorded testimony about your role in the purge. Every crime, every payment, every order. In approximately 2 hours, that testimony will broadcast across every major news network. The first crack in Drake's composure. Crane is a murderer. His testimony will be dismissed. His testimony will be supported by documentation Thomas Harper spent 10 years compiling. Financial records, communication intercepts, eyewitness accounts. Enough to prove beyond doubt that you orchestrated the murder of over 1,000 people for political gain. Drake's security details shifted uneasily, sensing change in their employer's demeanor. You can't prove anything. I have lawyers, political allies. You had those things. Marcus took a step forward. Right now, your political allies are receiving the same information. By tomorrow, you won't have friends left in Washington. Then what's to stop me from killing you right now? Nothing, except the knowledge that it won't change anything. Your forces are broken, your allies are deserting, your secrets are about to be exposed. Killing me would be satisfying, but it won't save you. Drake stared, 20 years of power crumbling as reality became undeniable. What do you want? Surrender, public trial. Accountability for every life you've destroyed. You'll spend the rest of your life in a prison cell. That's more mercy than you deserve. Silence waited with fate. Then Drake reached for his sidearm. Marcus was faster. The shot took Drake in the shoulder, spinning him down before his weapon cleared the holster. The security detail froze, calculating odds that had shifted against them. Stand down. Your employer is going to prison regardless of what happens in the next few seconds. One by one, the mercenaries lowered their weapons. Marcus walked to where Drake lay bleeding and cursing. Victor Crane told me you threatened to desecrate his family's graves if he ever turned against you. Those threats end now, forever. Marcus knelt, his voice dropping. I spent 15 years dreaming of killing you, and now that you're at my mercy, I'm not going to do it. Why not, Hassan? Because you're not worth becoming a monster over. Because the people you killed deserve justice, not revenge. And because the best punishment for a man who believed himself above the law is to spend the rest of his life subject to it. Drake was taken into custody as the sun began to set. The evidence release proceeded as planned, dominating news cycles with revelations that shocked the nation. The trial, when it's on, was the most watched legal proceeding in a generation. Conviction on over 200 counts, life imprisonment without possibility of parole. The year that followed was one of reconstruction and healing. Marcus and Lily married in a ceremony notable for simplicity, a gathering in the mountains that had witnessed so much history. Cole served as best man. Elena provided security that was probably unnecessary but deeply appreciated. Ryan Morrison attended in dress uniform, having returned to active duty with new understanding of what service meant. They built a life together. Marcus established a training program for young fighters, teaching them not just survival, but how to maintain humanity through violence. Lily opened a clinic serving both pack and human communities. 3 months after the wedding, Lily came to him with news that changed everything once again. "I'm pregnant." Marcus felt the world shift beneath him. After everything, after all the death and violence and loss, new life. "Are you certain?" Doc confirmed it this morning. Her hand moved to her still flat stomach. "I know the risks, given my age, given everything, but, but my father spent his life fighting for a future he would never see. Jack gave everything so others could build something worth having." Her eyes met his. "I want to give our child the world they fought for." Marcus pulled her close, feeling the warmth of her presence against the cold that had lived in him for so long. "Then that's what we'll do." The pregnancy was difficult as expected. Lily was no longer young and her body bore the accumulated stress of years of trauma and combat. But she faced each challenge with the same determination that had carried her through 15 years of hiding and the battle that had brought Drake down. Their son was born on a spring morning, healthy and strong, with his father's gray eyes and his mother's fierce spirit. They named him Thomas, after the grandfather he would never know, the man whose sacrifice had made this moment possible. 10 years passed. Marcus stood on his cabin porch watching his children play in the autumn leaves. Thomas was 9 now, already showing the determination that had defined both sides of his lineage. Eleanor, 5, was named for Doc Chen, her laughter carrying memories of a man who had given it everything. Lily emerged from the cabin carrying coffee, her hair now streaked with gray that she made no effort to hide. "Thomas asked about you yesterday, wanted to know why you have so many scars." "What did you tell him?" "That you got them protecting people you love." "He seemed satisfied." She paused. "He also asked if he would have to get scars someday." Marcus thought about legacy and hope. "What did you tell him?" "That his grandfather and great-grandfather fought so that he might never have to. That the purpose of their sacrifice was to build a world where children could grow up without learning how to kill. And if that world doesn't hold," Lily smiled with wisdom earned through loss and love, "then we'll teach him what he needs to know. But we'll also teach him why, so that if he ever has to fight, he'll know what he's fighting for." Marcus nodded, watching young Thomas tackle his sister in a pile of leaves. Ryan Morrison visited regularly now, a major with command responsibility. He exercised with wisdom Marcus had helped develop. Cole and Elena had retired together to a ranch not far away. Their relationship evolved from comrades to something deeper. They gathered regularly, survivors of battles that had changed history. Jack Morrison's grave overlooked the valley marked by a simple stone. But his legacy lived in everything they had built, in alliances that endured, in principles that guided the next generation. Thomas ran up to the porch, breathless and laughing. "Grandfather, can you teach me to track animals? Father says you know how to find anything in the forest." Marcus looked down at the boy who carried his namesake's legacy forward. For a moment he saw Thomas Harper, the friend he had lost. He saw Jack Morrison, the mentor who had shaped him. He saw all the dead who had given everything so that this moment might exist. "Tomorrow, we'll go into the forest together and I'll show you what the mountains have to teach." The boy grinned and ran off. Lily squeezed Marcus's hand. "They'll never know how close we came to losing everything." "No, and that's exactly how it should be." Marcus watched the children disappear around the corner. "We fought so they could be innocent. We carry the weight so they can be free." The sun continued its descent, painting the sky in colors that promised tomorrow. In the valley below, the pack went about its business, a community that had survived darkness and emerged into light. And on the porch of a cabin in Montana wilderness, 2 people who had found each other through violence and loss sat together in peace, knowing that some battles were worth fighting precisely because they made moments like this possible. The wars were finally over. The building had finally begun. Somewhere Marcus knew Thomas Harper and Jack Morrison were watching, satisfied that their sacrifices had created something worth protecting, something that would endure. This was the legacy they had fought for. This was the peace they had earned. This was enough.